What was something your roommate had done that left you scarred for the rest of your life? I'll go first. This happened during my first year of college. I'm 26 now, and I still sometimes wake up at night with the strange feeling that someone is standing beside my bed. Not touching me, not speaking, just watching. It took me years to realize exactly when that feeling started. It started with my roommate. Let's call her Mia. Freshman dorms are supposed to be chaotic. At least, that's what everyone told me before I moved in. Horror stories were everywhere. Roommates stealing food, blasting music at 3 a.m., inviting strangers over, leaving disgusting messes everywhere. I mentally prepared for the worst. Instead, I got Mia, and Mia, at first, was the perfect roommate. We were both 20, same dormitory building, same floor, same tiny two-room setup separated by a thin wall and a shared bathroom. She was majoring in psychology. I was studying finance. In every possible way, we were opposites. I was the kind of girl who liked dresses, soft colors, clean lines. My room looked like something out of a minimalist Pinterest board, neatly made bed, white shelves, everything arranged in calm little sections. Mia's room looked like a storage unit had exploded. Books everywhere, papers stacked in crooked piles, clothes draped over the back of chairs, psychology textbooks open face down on the floor, half-used notebooks filled with scribbles I couldn't read. The weird part? She seemed perfectly comfortable in that chaos. She also dressed the exact same way her room looked. Baggy clothes, oversized hoodies, loose cargo pants. She had a great figure, which I only noticed once when she grabbed a shirt from the laundry pile and changed quickly before realizing I was still in the room. But normally, she hid it completely. It wasn't insecurity. It was almost like she preferred disappearing, blending into the background. Meanwhile, I liked looking put together. Nothing extravagant. I came from a wealthy family, but not the kind that flaunted it. Still, nice clothes were normal for me. Good skincare, tidy room, decent groceries. Mia once casually mentioned she grew up poor. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't pry. Our arrangement worked perfectly because neither of us expected much interaction. We'd both leave in the morning for classes, return around evening, eat separately, study separately, sleep, repeat. There were nights when the only words we exchanged were things like, "Bathroom free?" "Yeah." "Thanks." And honestly, it was peaceful. When my friends complained about nightmare roommates, I used to laugh. One girl on my floor had a roommate who stole her makeup. Another said hers kept bringing random people over for parties at night. I remember telling someone once, jokingly, I think I accidentally got the perfect roommate. At the time, I believed that. Looking back, I think Mia liked it that I thought of our arrangement as such. There was one other presence in the dorm, Mia's cat. A small gray thing with sharp yellow eyes and a crooked tail. I never learned its real name because Mia barely used it. She'd just make a soft clicking sound with her tongue, and the cat would appear from somewhere in her room. The cat stayed almost entirely on Mia's side of the dorm, which was strange because most cats wander, but this one didn't. It sat near her desk when she studied, curled up near her feet when she read. Sometimes it watched her the same way dogs watch their owners, completely focused. If it ever made a mess, Mia cleaned it immediately. She was meticulous about that. Litter box, spotless, food bowl, clean, fresh water, daily. Despite everything else in her room being chaotic, the cat's corner looked like a tiny, perfectly maintained island of order. I remember thinking that was sweet. Raising a pet during freshman year sounded exhausting. Classes were already overwhelming, assignments never stopped, and half the time, I barely had energy to cook dinner. But Mia managed it effortlessly, or at least, it looked effortless. The first semester was exciting. New campus, new people, freedom. Then the assignments started piling up. Group projects, midterms, deadlines stacked on top of deadlines. By the middle of the first trimester, I was constantly buried in finance work. Spreadsheets, case studies, late night studying, which meant I barely paid attention to Mia. She stayed quiet, never bothered me, never touched my groceries. Bills were always paid on time and equally split. If anything, she was unusually respectful. So respectful that sometimes I forgot she was even there. Until the cat disappeared. It happened one random Tuesday. I noticed because the dorm felt quieter. You know how certain sounds become part of the background of your life? The soft scratch of a litter box, a faint jingle of a collar, the light thud of a cat jumping off furniture. All of that stopped. At first I assumed the cat was hiding somewhere in Mia's room. But by evening, I realized I hadn't seen it all day. "Hey," I said casually while grabbing something from the fridge. "Where's your cat?" Mia didn't look up from the psychology textbook on her desk. "Don't know." Her tone was flat. I waited for her to elaborate. She didn't. "Did it get out?" I asked cautiously. "Maybe," she replied nonchalantly once again. No concern, no searching, no checking the hallway, nothing. At first I thought maybe she'd already looked earlier. But the next day, the cat still wasn't there. Or the next. After 3 days, I started checking the dorm hallway myself. I asked the floor group chat if anyone had seen a gray cat. No one had. Meanwhile, Mia behaved like nothing had changed. She still studied at her desk, still kept the litter box clean, still left cat food in the small metal tray near her wall. That part confused me the most. Every evening she poured fresh kibble into the tray. The food sat there untouched for hours and then for several days. Eventually, it molded, and only then did Mia throw it away. Then the next evening, she poured fresh food again, like she expected the cat to come back at any moment. Except she never went looking for it. Not once. A week passed. Then two. Eventually, I stopped asking. I assumed the cat had escaped through an open window somewhere and gotten lost. It was sad, but things like that happen. Mia never brought it up again, and slowly, life returned to normal. Classes, assignments, dorm routines. Except, something about the dorm felt slightly different after the cat vanished. At the time, I couldn't explain why. It was just a vague discomfort, like walking into a room where someone had been arguing seconds before you arrived. You don't hear the argument, but you feel it lingering in the air. The next strange thing happened about a month later. I had a short day of classes and returned to the dorm around 2 p.m. Usually, Mia had classes until evening, so I expected the room to be empty. But when I opened the door, she was there, sitting on the floor, not studying, not on her laptop, just sitting. Her back leaned against the side of her bed, knees pulled slightly up, arms resting loosely over them. For a second, I thought she hadn't noticed me. Then she looked up. Her eyes didn't show surprise or curiosity, just acknowledgement. "You're back early," she said evenly. "Yeah, professor canceled our last lecture." She nodded once, and then nothing. No follow-up question. No conversation. Just silence. I walked to my side of the dorm, dropped my bag, and started unpacking my laptop. Mia kept sitting there, completely still. After a few minutes, the quiet became uncomfortable. "What are you doing?" I asked, thinking. I laughed a little. About what? She tilted her head slightly, studying me, people. I assumed she meant psychology coursework. Oh, for class? No. Her answer came almost immediately. Then she looked away and stood up. Just people. That night, I woke up around 3 a.m. I didn't know why. Sometimes dorm noises wake you. Someone walking in the hallway, doors closing, pipes shifting. But the dorm was completely silent. Still half asleep, I rolled over to check the time. That's when I noticed something strange. My bedroom door was open. I always closed it before sleeping. Not locked. Just closed. But now it was open about 6 inches. At the time, I assumed I must have left it that way accidentally. So I got up, pushed the door shut, and went back to sleep. I didn't think about it again until the next night, when I woke up at almost the exact same time and the door was open again. Just 6 inches. Like someone had pushed it slowly and then stopped. That was the first time I wondered something I wish I hadn't, because the thought came with a very uncomfortable follow-up question. If I always closed my door before sleeping, then how did it keep opening at night? After the third night, I stopped convincing myself it was the hinges, because hinges don't open a door the exact same amount every time. 6 inches. Not 5, not 8. Not wide enough to fully see inside the room, just wide enough for someone standing in the hallway to look through the gap. I started measuring it, not in an obvious way, just noticing the distance between the edge of the door and the wall when I woke up. Always the same. 6 inches. That detail bothered me more than anything else. Mechanical problems don't repeat themselves with precision. People do. The next few days passed normally, or at least, they looked normal. Classes were getting harder. Finance professors had an annoying habit of assigning projects that looked simple until you actually opened the spreadsheet. So, most evenings I sat at my desk with my laptop, headphones on, trying to untangle formulas. Meanwhile, Mia stayed mostly in her room. Sometimes I'd hear the faint scratch of her pen against paper. Other times, absolute silence. The silence was worse, because when Mia was quiet, it never felt like she was relaxing. It felt like she was concentrating. One night around 11 p.m., I got up to grab water. The dorm lights were off except for the kitchen lamp. Mia was sitting at the small dining table. There were papers spread everywhere around her. Charts, notes, sticky tabs. It looked like she was working on some kind of research project. I poured water into a glass and glanced over. Her notebook wasn't filled with normal notes. It looked more like columns. Structured. Like data. Each column had headings. Time. Behavior. Response. I probably would have ignored it, except I noticed something strange under one of the headings. My name, not written clearly, just the initials. That alone wouldn't have meant anything, except underneath it were timestamps. 3 a.m. 7 minutes part 3 a.m. Timestamps varying around 3 a.m. My stomach tightened slightly. Those times looked familiar. Too familiar. They were the exact times I had been waking up at night. Before I could stop myself, I asked, "Working on a project?" Mia didn't look up immediately. She finished writing something first. Then she lifted her head slowly, something like that. "For which class?" I gulped audibly. "Not a class," she shrugged. I nodded awkwardly. "Looks intense." She followed my gaze to the notebook. For a moment, her eyes rested on the page. Then she calmly closed the notebook. Not quickly, not defensively. Just Deliberately. Human observation, she said. I laughed a little, like people watching. More in depth than that, she tilted her head slightly, with as many more variables as possible. I didn't really know what that meant, so I just nodded and went back to my room. But something about the way she said variables made my skin prickle. The next incident happened 2 days later. I woke up to the sound of scratching. Not loud scratching. Soft. Like something lightly dragging across wood. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then it happened again. It was coming from my door. I sat up in bed. The room was dark except for the faint line of hallway light, and the door was open again. 6 inches. The scratching sound came once more. Slow. Deliberate. Like fingernails gently dragging along the outside surface. My throat went dry. Mia? I called softly. The sound stopped instantly. Silence flooded the dorm again. I waited. Nothing. After about 30 seconds, I forced myself out of bed. I walked to the door. My heart was beating faster than it should have. I pulled the door open. The hallway was empty. Mia's bedroom door was closed. Bathroom light off. Everything normal. But when I looked down at my door, I saw something. 4 faint marks in the wood. Thin. Parallel. Like someone had dragged their fingernails across it. I didn't confront Mia about it. Mostly because I didn't know what I'd even say. Hey, were you scratching my door at 3 a.m.? It sounded insane, even in my own head. Instead, I started paying closer attention to Mia. And that's when I began noticing things I should have seen earlier. For example, Mia watched people a lot. Not in the normal glance at someone passing by way. She studied them. You'd see her sitting somewhere, cafeteria, library, campus lawn, and her eyes would stay fixed on someone for minutes at a time. Sometimes longer. Her face never showed emotion during those moments, just quiet concentration. Once I saw her doing it in the dining hall. She was staring at a guy 2 tables away while he ate. Not staring at his face, at his hands, watching every movement as he lifted the fork, chewed, drank water. I sat down across from her and snapped my fingers lightly, to Mia. She blinked like she had been pulled out of deep thought. You were staring. No, I'm observing. She took a bite of food. Observing what exactly? I asked, confused. Behavior. I laughed again awkwardly at that. You're intense. She simply smirked at my words and said, psychology is intense. That night, something happened that genuinely unsettled me. I had fallen asleep early, exhausted from studying. At some point during the night, I woke up briefly. Not fully awake. Just that strange half-conscious state where your brain drifts between dreaming and reality. And in that hazy moment, I thought I saw something in my room, a shape, near the foot of my bed, standing, watching. I blinked. The room looked empty again. My brain quickly dismissed it as a dream. But the next morning, something felt wrong. Not in the room. On my bed, the blanket was tucked tightly around the mattress, hospital corner tight. I never tucked my blanket like that, ever. I usually just pulled it up and collapsed, but now the sheet was perfectly smoothed. Edges tucked under. Corners crisp. Like someone had taken the time to arrange it neatly. I stood there staring at it for a long time. Then I slowly walked into the kitchen. Mia was sitting at the table again, her notebook open, pen moving. She looked up as I entered. You slept well, she said factually. It wasn't phrased like a question. How do you know? You look rested. She shrugged. I woke up a few times. I answered honestly. She made a small note in the notebook. Without looking up, she said, what times? My pulse skipped slightly and I asked incredulously, what? What times did you wake up? Her tone was casual, academic, like she was collecting harmless data. Why do you ask? She finally looked up. Her expression was neutral. She said, it's mere curiosity. Something inside me tightened. Why would you be curious about when I wake up? She held my gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Then she closed the notebook again. It's my habit. That word, simple, vague, but heavy. I started locking my bedroom door after that. At first it felt dramatic, but I did it anyway. Just in case. The first night I locked it, I slept better. The second night too. By the third night, I almost convinced myself the strange feeling had been paranoia. Then, close to 4 a.m., something hit the door. Not hard. Just a gentle tap. Like someone testing the handle. My eyes opened instantly. I stayed perfectly still in bed. The handle moved, slowly, carefully. It stopped when the lock resisted. Then silence. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Then I heard something else. A whisper, very soft. So soft I almost thought I imagined it. From the other side of the door, I hear, makes it harder. My blood went cold because I knew that voice. It was Mia, and she didn't sound annoyed, or angry, or even surprised. She sounded interested. After that night, I stopped sleeping normally. Not the way people usually mean when they say that. I didn't stay awake all night. I still slept. My body forced it eventually, but sleep stopped feeling safe. It felt like leaving a door unlocked. The whisper stayed in my head for days. Makes it harder? Not impossible. Harder. That detail bothered me more than anything else. It suggested something I couldn't stop thinking about. Mia had already been doing something before I locked the door. Something the lock interfered with. The next morning, I watched her carefully. She was sitting at the table again with her notebook. Nothing about her looked unusual. Same baggy hoodie, same quiet expression, same slow handwriting. If I hadn't heard the whisper myself, I would have believed nothing had happened. "You're up early," she said when I entered the kitchen. I didn't sleep much. She nodded slightly. That happens when routine changes. "What do you mean? Sleep environment." Her eyes flicked toward my bedroom door, then back to her notebook. "You locked it last night." It wasn't a question. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "How did you know?" "You usually don't," she said. "That doesn't answer the question." She tilted her head, like she was considering how much to say. Then she answered calmly, "I heard the lock." That sounded reasonable. Too reasonable. Which made it worse. I started spending more time outside the dorm after that. Library, cafeteria, study lounges. Anywhere but the dorm. But eventually, you have to go back. And every time I did, Mia seemed aware, not suspicious. Aware, like she could read subtle changes in my behavior. One evening, I came back later than usual. Around 9 p.m., the dorm lights were off. Except Mia's bedroom. Her door was open slightly. I walked toward the kitchen to grab water and noticed something on the dining table, a sheet of paper, covered in diagrams. Not psychological theories, not lecture notes. It looked more like a study map. Except the subject was our dorm. There was a rough sketch of the layout. My room, her room, the hallway. Little marks drawn in different spots. Time stamps next to them. My stomach dropped. Before I could study it further, Mia's voice came from behind me. "You're back." I jumped slightly. She stood in the hallway, watching me. Her eyes moved from me to the paper, then back to me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she walked over calmly and picked up the page. "You shouldn't go through other people's things," she said. "You are mapping the dorm. I map many environments." "Why ours?" She shrugged. "Convenience." The answer felt hollow. But what unsettled me more was her tone. She wasn't defensive. She wasn't even embarrassed. She sounded mildly disappointed, like I had interrupted an experiment. That night, I locked the door again. But something felt wrong. Different. The dorm was too quiet. Not the normal quiet. The heavy kind. Like when a storm is building but the air hasn't broken yet. Around 3:30 a.m. I woke up suddenly. No noise, no dream yet. Just this strange feeling that something had changed. My room was darker than usual. The hallway light that normally leaked under my door was gone. I sat up slowly and realized why. Something was blocking the door from the outside, a shadow, standing there, completely still. My throat tightened. "Mia?" No response. The shadow didn't move. But then I noticed something worse. The shadow wasn't facing away, it was facing the door. Facing me, even though the door was closed. She was standing inches away from it. I could hear her breathing through the thin wood. Slow, controlled, like someone concentrating very hard. Then her voice came through the door. Quiet, almost thoughtful. "You changed the conditions." My mouth felt dry. "What?" "The lock, it changes the response," she said softly. Her fingers brushed lightly against the other side of the door. I could hear the faint scraping sound through the wood. "You're scaring me," I said. "That's a response. Fear increases awareness," she responded. Her voice didn't change. Still calm. Still analytical. Something inside my chest tightened. "Mia, what are you doing?" There was a long pause. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. I was measuring how long it takes for someone to stop cooperating. My heart started pounding. "What does that mean?" "You lasted longer than the cat." The words hit me like ice water. For a moment, my brain refused to process them. "The cat?" I whispered. "Yes, cats notice being watched very quickly, but they're not very cooperative. High temperament tendencies." Her tone stayed neutral, like she was discussing lab results. My hands started shaking as I asked her, "What did you do to it?" "I removed variables." She chuckled. My stomach lurched. "What variables?" I echoed. "Movement, escape routes, light, oxygen." It struggled at first. Her voice remained eerily steady as she explained. I felt sick. Her fingers tapped lightly on the door. Observation becomes clearer when the subject is contained. Mia amused. My breathing grew shallow. "Did you kill it?" I asked incredulously, even though I suspected I knew her answer before she even spelled it. Then, she admitted in her void but proud tone, "Yes, eventually." The word dropped into the silence like a stone. I felt something inside me break as I yelled back, "You're insane!" "Psychopathy is the clinical term," she chuckled as if discussing the weather. "Factually, I don't experience remorse the way you do, but observation is fascinating," she continued calmly. My mind raced. "You were watching me sleep?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Since September." A wave of nausea rolled through me. "That was months." "You're sick." "Possibly." She shrugged. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. Humans are much more interesting than cats. My grip tightened on the bedsheets, my voice cracking. You need help. I need better entertainment. You seem fascinating for the time being, she countered. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Then, the door handle moved again. Slowly, testing the lock. When it didn't open, she sighed softly. You altered the environment. Good, I tried to say bravely. Yes, she said thoughtfully. It changes the experiment. My heart was racing now. Experiment? Yes. Her voice lowered slightly. Fear affects sleep patterns. A soft metal sound came from outside, like something being set on the floor. What was that? I asked. No response. Mia? Another long silence. Then her voice returned, closer to the door. Soft. Do you know something interesting about sleep? I didn't answer. Eventually, she continued calmly. The body forces it. My chest tightened. Even though the door was locked, even though there was wood between us, I suddenly felt completely exposed. People think staying awake protects them, she said, amused. The handle moved again. Once, twice, then stopped. But fatigue breaks resistance. She promised. I pushed myself upright until my back was parallel to the headboard. What are you saying? Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'm saying. The pause stretched. And in that moment I realized something horrifying. She wasn't trying to break in. She was waiting for exhaustion, waiting for a mistake. Perhaps waiting for me to break under pressure and open the door even? Her final words came through the door like a quiet promise. We're not done observing. I didn't sleep again that night. By morning, I contacted the campus security and police got involved. They searched Mia's room. What they found still haunts me. 3 notebooks, all filled with observation logs. Some records were about the cat, but most were about me. Sleep times, breathing patterns, movement during dreams. Even the exact nights I woke up. She had even clicked images of me while I was unaware. Hundreds of them, taken while I was asleep. From the doorway, Mia was visible in the reflection of the window, standing next to my bed, completely expressionless. But the worst thing wasn't the notes. Not even the photographs she took of me, which is creepy enough, but not more than the evidence police found in her closet. Evidence of her insanity. The innocent little cat was found in her closet, unmoving and lifelessly stuffed in an airtight container. Some cops threw up on the spot from the condition it was discovered in. Decayed and pitiful. If that was not horrifying enough, Mia had gone through the efforts of tying the box with a red ribbon and bow. Authorities removed her from the dorm immediately that day. Psychological evaluation. Investigation. Charges for animal abuse. I transferred buildings immediately. Different dorm, different floor, different life. No roommates ever again after that. But the damage stayed nonetheless. Because once you learn someone spent months watching you sleep, you never fully forget that feeling. Even now, years later, sometimes I wake up around midnight and instinctively look at the door, just to make sure it's closed. And sometimes, even when I know I live alone, I still have the horrible feeling that someone is standing beside my bed, watching, waiting for me to fall asleep again. Even years later, I cannot muster the courage to have a second presence in my house. I pay extra rent to live in a penthouse. Curtains are always drawn, despite being at a high floor. I have special security systems to prevent intrusion, and I never let any partner in my house. I have never even visited my ex-boyfriend's house for the same reason. I know I might be paranoid, but I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Thanks for watching. If you liked our videos and want to see more of such content, subscribe to my channel and hit the like, share, and comment icon down below. These story plots are entirely original, and the entire process is reliant on one-woman efficiency. To grow and support this community, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Thank you.